Have you ever wondered what is volleyball? Why does it have so many weird rules? What do I need to know in order to be able to play volleyball better? This video is going to help you out so much because I'm having a conversation with a friend of mine who is really involved in sports but doesn't really know volleyball that much, and he's going to just ask me all the questions that you might have, and it's going to be a chance for you to learn more about volleyball through just this conversation of me answering questions.
So I want to go to the type of gear that's needed. So, when preparing for a game, what are the main pieces of equipment that a volleyball player would need? Like, for example, a helmet to a football player, shin guards to a soccer player. What would that gear look like for a volleyball player?
Awesome. So if you're playing indoor volleyball, you're going to need some good tennis shoes, and you're going to need the types of tennis shoes that don't have super high heels, because volleyball involves a lot of jumping and a lot of moving sideways, and knee and ankle injuries are so common in volleyball just because you come down wrong or you're shifting your weight wrong. So you really want to invest in a good shoe. And then some coaches, go back and forth. Do you need ankle braces? Do you not? There's lots of good arguments on either side of this. In college, we were required to wear ankle braces if we were going to play front row, but not if we were going to play back row, because the most common way for a front row player to be injured is for somebody to come under the net and then for you to land on their foot and then you roll your ankle out. Right. And it's super common even at the college level because of the way that the rules are, and because so you are allowed to be on the line, just not completely over the line. So if both people are on the line, you're going to land on each other, right? So front row players generally recommend to wear ankle braces, but you want to know which type of ankle braces to get. There are the kind that are lace-up, cloth type of ankle braces, and there are the kind that have super rigid supports on either side. The super rigid supports on either side actually may not be the best, because they can stabilize your ankle really, really well, but it's also possible that the torque that would have gone onto your ankle goes onto your knee, and a knee injury is right. A knee injury can be worse than an ankle injury. So it's up to you and your coach, and kind of what you think is best for you in the gym, and whether or not you've had previous injuries on your ankle or your knee to determine whether or not you need ankle braces. But it's going to be a conversation for every volleyball player. And then going up a little bit further, you definitely need knee pads. So if you're playing indoors, especially if you're going to be a back row player, you need to invest in some solid knee pads, because you're going to be diving and getting on the ground if you're playing the game right. Now, a lot of men players don't play with knee pads, and this is something where, when we're playing co-ed and we get in the gym and it's women with the men, it's always a side conversation with the women, like, why are these men not wearing knee pads? They're diving like we are, So I can't explain why men players don't want to wear knee pads, but but I would say if I'm coaching boys, they're going to wear knee pads, because why would you just mess with your knee getting injured?
Right. Indoor, especially indoor volleyball.
Right, yeah, you're landing on a really hard surface, and if you're diving right, you're not really hitting your knees, but you never know if you're going to dive right or wrong, and when you get to a high enough level, the ball is more important than your body, so you're not you're sacrificing yourself. Yeah, and so then going a little bit further up the body, most volleyball players wear spandex, and that's the shorts that we wear. The reason behind wearing spandex instead of like fluffier shorts that move is because of net violations. So if you are playing on the front row and you jump up and any part of your body touches the bottom or the top of the net, that is a violation. Your team loses the point. So your body includes your clothes. The only part that is allowed to hit the net that won't be called is your hair. So if you're wearing spandex and it's tight to your body, you're not going to have that kind of excess cloth flowing to hit the net. Now, most refs nowadays would let that go as an incidental contact where they wouldn't call it. It didn't impact the play at all. But it is possible for it to get called. That's completely the ref's discretion. So it's just easier to wear spandex. Some people also say that spandex is easier to move in to play back row. I personally have played back row in shorts and spandex, and I don't find there to be too much of a difference there. But the spandex does have a purpose. If you ask people, some people might say that it doesn't, some people might say that it does. But on the front row at those high levels, you don't want to take any chances with anything outside of your control happening. So spandex it is.
And especially because, going into a game, you never know, the type of ref that you might get if it's a ref that's going to call the game super, super skin tight. So that definitely makes sense. You want to maximize and minimize, and you want to maximize the points you get. You want to minimize any violation that you get. So that makes a lot of sense. So one question that, especially since we're kind of, in this quarantine and stuff like that, a lot of volleyball players or aspiring volleyball players may be looking for drills that they can do to get better. So what are some drills that a player can do, especially during this time, to kind of get better, to kind of, perfect their skills?
Yeah. So first off, I would say you can check out a bunch of my other YouTube videos because I've put together workouts for the kids to do. And I even have some downloadable, I even have some downloads that people can have. There's also a great channel, Coach Coco Volleyball, and then Victoria Garrick. Both have great at-home drills that you can do. But I'd say the number one thing that new players need to get number one thing that new players need to get better at is ball control. So anything that you can do where you're just passing the ball to yourself, setting the ball to yourself, maybe off of a wall, controlling how many touches you can get in a row, whether it's passing or setting or alternating, that's going to help you so much. And then number two is if you can get used to just calling the ball while you do that, so mine, every time you touch the ball, that's going to translate to when you get on the court and you're having to communicate with your teammates. And that's something that a lot of the younger players don't do very well, to be honest.
So I never thought about that. So ball control for like any younger players, that's one of the main things that they kind of want to start to improve on and start to perfect.
Absolutely, yeah, because volleyball is so much different than every other sport that you play with a ball that doesn't have a racket, right? Because you're not allowed to actually stop the movement of the ball. So, playing basketball, if you're passing to each other, you get to actually hold the ball and turn your body, do whatever you need to get rid of the ball. But volleyball, it's only touching you for a fraction of a second. And so you need to get good at doing the most you can with that fraction of a second, right? So where's my body facing? Whether I have my arm turned like this or like this can really impact, because this side of my arm is flat and then this side of my arm really isn't. So every single way that you can imagine touching a ball, by the time you're my age and you've been playing for 20 years, you're going to have touched the ball there and had to do something with it in a game situation. And so the more you can practice with those weird touches, with trying to get your body in the right spot to do a controlled touch, is going to help you in the game.
And from what I hear you saying, as you continue to practice that, it starts to become muscle memory.
Yes, definitely. So at first, especially working with new players, they might even have to think about how do I get to the ball? Do I turn and run, or do I shuffle? What's the best for, this ball that's coming at me right now? What should I have done? And you're thinking about that every single play, and you can even freeze because you're overthinking it. But then eventually, as you've been practicing it, you don't have to think about those things anymore. It just becomes natural. But the only way to get to where it is natural and you look really good doing it is to have messed up so many times before.
True. That's true. Very true. If I'm a volleyball coach, how should I outline, because we just talked about drills, how should I outline my practice if I'm a volleyball coach?
All right. Well, so this, if you ask any volleyball coach, they might tell you something different. But for me, I like to have about 10 to 15 minutes of dynamic warm-up in a 2-hour practice. So you're getting your body warm. This might be running laps. This might be doing a fun game that gets the kids running. This might be they're stretching while they're moving, just to get their bodies away from that potential injury zone. For me, this also includes doing ladder drills to get the kids used to moving their feet, especially for the younger kids that aren't coordinated yet. This makes a huge difference. And then the next about 15 minutes would be ball handling. So I just have them either by themselves or with one partner, passing back and forth, setting back and forth, making sure they know how to control the ball. So that first half hour of practice, you're not doing much other than just giving them feedback and making sure they're focusing. And then the next half hour of practice, I do a drill that helps their individual skills. So something that helps them become better players individually. And sometimes I break this up by positions. Sometimes it's everybody has to learn all the skills. And it can vary depending on what my team is good at, what my team is bad at, who needs to focus on what. And then that's now you're an hour into practice, you're halfway through practice, and you haven't done any team stuff. So depending on where we're at in the season, the next half hour might be more individual skills. It might be learning something new, like a new offense or new defense. It might be going over their positions on the court that they have to be in certain defenses. It might be working on something as a team that they really need to focus on getting better at. It could be any kind of number of things. Again, depending on where we're at in the season. And then it could also be just an extension of what the last half hour is, which my last half hour always is some sort of volleyball playing, so scrimmaging within the team. And that can be a 6-on-6 drill where they have to just play against each other. That can be a 6-on-6 drill where like only the middle blocker can score, so the setters have to be cognizant of that. There's lots of variations that you can do, just like any other sport, lots of things that you can do with scrimmages to make it more entertaining and to challenge the kids. But I always like to have some sort of scrimmage. And it doesn't have to be a 6-on-6. So if we have a team, like sometimes in club, I like to have fewer than 12 players, which means we can only scrimmage if there's coaches involved. So sometimes if I have a team of 8, I might have that last half hour be a 4-on-4 game, or I might have the last half hour be a 6-on-2 game where it really stresses on those two players. They have to play defense, right? And that team of 6 should not lose to the team of 2. So there's lots of different things that you can do with that last half hour, depending on the number of kids that you have and what you want to focus on.
Good. That's great. Real great tidbits.